Welcome to the podcast that has the best of it all politics, opinion, and your favorite stop for weekly updates.
I'm Aden Z, your lead contributor.
And I'm Jason V, your opinion columnist and self identified voice of the people.
Join us as we talk about this last weekend's synopsis and cover the topics of today.
Welcome back, everybody, to Topics of Today. Aiden, I know you're excited for this podcast. Another presidential victory for Donald Trump.
Absolutely. I tell you what, these election cycles don't get any easier.
It was a wild night. I did not think it was going to be that big of a dub for Donald Trump, but man, we eaten today.
Yeah, no, it was a great victory for Donald Trump, which is kind of strange to think about. The rhetoric we've heard for the last 4 years is that America did not actually like Donald Trump and that he was simply what kind of effect would you say he was? He was a
Big
scourge.
F you to the government.
He was a big FU to the government. And that's how he got his start, correct? I
Yeah,
don't know if
that's
that's
the way
I don't know if that's the case. I mean, if you want to take a look at some of the charts I have rolling out of this election cycle, Jason.
I do like me some charts.
Certainly. All right, let's go over here and let's talk about some of these charts we got. Now, the first one is what was originally put out before the election. If you can see this, it says that Nevada, of course, is going through all the battleground states. They got Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia being swing states. And then,
Here,
of course, you got your blue states, New Mexico, Virginia, Minnesota, and Maine and whatnot, all being your generally your light blue states.
yep,
So yeah, and so we saw here was just your general, you know, mid 2020s election. It's become standard in American politics almost to see Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia as your swing states. Now this is what we talked about, right, Jason? This is the what we talked about. The
yes.
whole election ordeal all being covered by this. So now I want to show you how how I saw the election. I don't know, Jason, did you play much into that, or was it just me going through the polls, really?
I think we saw it the same way. I did not think that, North Carolina would have been as red as it was. Same thing with Georgia. And here's something even crazier to think about nowadays is that New York is more of a swing state than Florida is.
But
Yeah, Trump
this is
won.
this is the poll that this is the foreseen that I had, where I cannot put a bead on whether or not Virginia and Nevada would be red or blue. But I definitely was wrong calling Michigan for Kamala Harris. I did not think that Kamala would come off with it. I mean,
If you
I thought
if
Kamala
we would
would
have
come
made
out with it, but she did not.
if you would have made Michigan gray and Virginia light blue, that would have been perfect.
Yeah, but the polls coming out of Virginia were telling us that it was going to be neck and neck. So I'm surprised that it was as blue as it was, honestly. But
Well, and that's
yeah,
just it. I think ultimately pollsters' careers are going to be over with for a long time. Nobody's going to ever believe them ever again.
they've pretty much made a mistake too many times. They've made too many mistakes, and
Like
it's
that
been bad
Iowa
press
poll
for
that
them.
came out. Yeah, like that Iowa poll that came out that said Iowa was going to go blue. That was like, that was over with in a few hours
And
tonight.
Selzer's poll that came
Yeah.
out, yeah,
Yeah,
that
that
was
was probably
bad.
the stupidest thing I ever heard.
It was bad news. And I wanted to take a look at this: 291 Trump, 228 Harris. This is what I had foreseen. This is the 2024 actual. It's 312 for Trump, 226 for Harris. I almost called it. I even got Maine and Nebraska's districts correct, and I'm happy about that. That was so cool that I was able to figure that out. I'm joking. I didn't figure that out. That was just the way the polling was.
Yes, and I think it's crazy that Donald Trump won all the swing states that were up in this election. This is the American people have really spoken, and
Yeah,
he's got
but
a job to do.
he could not have won presidency without Pennsylvania. I am fully certain of that.
Yes,
It would have been too underwhelming. He needed to have a show force that he had the mandate, as people have been saying online. He needed a mandate for power, and I think this is it. I mean, he got it. He's gonna get both chambers of Congress.
Yep.
and he's going to have he's going to have the judiciary, and he's going to have himself as the executive. So I think it's pretty much his government by this point.
Yeah, I think this was, a call by the people like, okay, you complained about not being able to get enough stuff done. Well, we're going to give you everything. If you don't get enough stuff down, then that's on you. I think that's what it is. Republicans need to do something with this election. Okay.
All right, now as you can see, the 2020 presidential election. This is the Wikipedia page. I'm not saying I like Wikipedia or anything, but they got concise material. And if we look here, popular vote, let me just zoom in real quick. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, 81.2 million versus 74.2 million.
Yes, and I think that Donald Trump, he got similar numbers as what he did in the 2020 election, while the Democrats, I think the deficit is going to be about 7 million votes. Here's the question. We get a lot of accusation from fraud. I'm not going to say that those votes didn't exist. I don't think that is the case. The simple fact of the matter is Democrats ran such a campaign that they did not draw out 7 million voters. Simple as that. And if you want a metric to realize how bad of a candidate Kamala Harris is, do you know how bad of a candidate you got to be that 7 million people who participated in the last election did not even participate in this one between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, or were
And
willing
if
to vote for Joe
and if you
Biden?
see this election map, all those states that went red this time around were blue. So you got Nevada, you've got Arizona, you've got Georgia, you've got Pennsylvania, you've got Michigan, you got Wisconsin. That right there
Wisconsin.
handed Donald Trump the presidency this time around.
Yes. And I think it's telltale about how poor of a candidate they were running. And they were trying to paint her as they were specifically trying to paint Kamala Harris as like the second coming of Jesus Christ. I mean, there's going to be so much joy. There's going to be so much. Everything's going to be fine.
Right.
7 million people did not participate.
Well, now let's shift our attention to 2024, which is still going on. So it's not going to be nearly as nice looking a Wikipedia article.
So
But let's take a look at what the election map looks like right now.
you can see
All
Donald
right.
Trump,
74.8
74.
million
Yep.
to 71.3 mil. I
That's
mean,
what I'm saying. Is it?
the margin is closer, but it's a matter of electoral votes. He still won the electoral votes.
Well, he's still projected to win the popular vote still. It's just the deficit's going to be somewhere around
Well, 3 million people is
6.
not a lot, but 3 million people is enough to where I'm saying that, yeah, he has the mandate at this point. Yep, as I was
But
saying, Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. That's all it takes to win an election these days. Is just get those battlegrounders.
the Rust Belt is, I think, what they've dubbed it nowadays.
Well, Nevada's not a part of the Rust Belt. Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia are not part of the Rust Belt. Georgia's part of the Bible Belt, which is different. The Rust Belt is getting hard to woo these days because they are getting more and more agitated that they are losing businesses, corporations, industry. It is sad how bad it's getting in rural Appalachia.
That's just what I kind of wanted to look towards, is that Donald Trump ran pretty close to the same numbers as what he did last election. It is no joke that Democrats falling flat on their face that lost them this election.
Well,
Anyway,
absolutely.
live up to just a handful of the promises that they've promised, and everybody would be saying this was a dub. But if they sit on their thumbs and let it slide by an opportunity like this where you have everything. And here's the thing, most people are freaking out. It's like, oh, well, we're going to have 4 years for this and whatnot. Well, midterms come up in 2 years. Really, you only have 18 months, because
Right.
then Republicans with cold feet who are worried about getting reelected will start getting soft.
You can't have a government start consuming itself, especially if it is of a ruling party. That is the problem Republicans have had a lot of in the past. Less Democrats do, because the Democrats usually are very good about whipping in their party, whereas the Republicans just kind of have stray hairs here and there that do whatever they want to try to appease their which is good. It's good to appease their voting blocks. It's good to appease the voters in their state. But Democrats will abandon their voters for the party, whereas Republicans do not do that. They usually will look out for themselves before their party, which isn't a bad thing.
Yep.
It's just a warning. It's a good warning for the government going forward.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And look, I I just think that, no matter what comes out of these next, it's going to be a crazy, 18 months, as I said. 18 months, I think that's the cutoff. If nothing is getting done in 18 months, I don't think people are ever going to vote for Republicans ever again. That's just this. That's what I think the simple fact is. If nothing gets done in these first 18 months, Republicans will be cooked.
That's not a bad synopsis of what might end up happening.
So Democrats, and you stop here. If you have Democrat family members, you may want to call on them, check up on them, because they might be in a deep dark place right now. But just let them know that it's only 18 months. Heard here on Topics of Today, 18 months, and then we'll see what happens.
All right, now let me get your opinion on this now, Jason. Even KHOU11 out of Houston says, yes, a FEMA employee told workers to skip homes with Trump signs, but it wasn't an agency-wide directive. What is your
Yes.
thoughts on the subject?
Well, I think this story was originally broke by the Daily Wire, and a lot of news organizations out there. Originally, the leaked text was exclusively held by the Daily Wire. So the Daily Wire was the first to break this story. And a lot of news organizations have kind of botched the story. But I think it's just really indicative of the people who say, well, we're not the racists, we're not the bad guys, but we'll discriminate against you by depending on how you vote. And this is where that silent Trump voter comes in. This is why the pollsters can't get nothing right, because this is how Trump voters are treated.
So you think that Trump voters are discriminated against more than this? That it's just not reported?
I would say so. Think about if you're a Trump supporter in a blue city, a deep blue city like Chicago. Can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine? I don't have experience with that, but like I can only imagine. And you get all these videos of people, tearing down signs and
Mm-hmm.
freaking, all sorts of doing. It's just they throw a fit if you have a sign up in your yard in
Right.
these areas. It's just sad.
I've not been on the receiving end of that myself, but I do know that's not good these days, especially with how partisan a lot of people are. A lot of partisan people in our governance, especially in
Anyways,
departments like FEMA that do not need to be partisan at all.
exactly. And from what I understood with this story is that the uh, the people at FEMA said that this did happen. They've admitted to it happening, and they said that this person was dealt with quickly, and it was only an isolated incident. Well, if it happened with one person, that leads me to think, it could be like, the whole FBI memos where they were spying on churches, like terrorist organizations, and then when that memo got leaked, and they said, "Oh no, this is just an isolated incident. It's only one time." But as it turned out, more and more leaks came out, and they were doing it all over. So we'll have to see where this goes. It's pretty early on, but I think that if it happened one time, what's stopping it from happening? 2, 3, 4, 5 times. What I don't understand is like during the hurricanes, there were people actually dying. You think you'd be able to put politics aside and be like,
Mm-hmm.
we just need to go help people? Nah, they
Nope,
can't
not
do it.
always the case. All right. Yeah, FEMA had some breaking news out of it this last week. Now, I want to get another opinion on the subject. And I don't know if I have anything to say about this a lot. I might, but I don't know. It's Gavin Newsom reportedly, quote unquote, Trump proofing his state's policies. Now, I'm pretty sure the Associated Press targeted disaster relief and zero emission vehicles that are quote unquote targeted by the Trump presidency. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that this is a very good indication of just how bad of a governor that Gavin Newsom is.
Yeah, I don't have too much respect for Gavin Newsom.
He spent much of his governing days simply being an opposition leader rather than an actual governor.
Yeah, well, I mean, all we gotta do is look at his state. His state's in shambles. The only time he got it cleaned up was when a dictator from another country was coming in to check things out. So,
I don't believe in his ability to lead. I don't believe in his ability to say what is good and bad for his state because he's proven time and time again that he overreacts to everything. Everything to him is a symbolic gesture. I don't think that anybody could look to him for solid stability in a state, which is why his state right now is not faring that well. Look at all of the policies he's tried to pull, all of the stuff that he's trying to go after. that will hurt certain sectors of his economy in the state, like energy, specifically because he wants to be a symbolic gesture of a clean energy that is unsustainable to the extent that he's looking for.
Yeah, just his policies aren't good. The ways are in the state is not good. And like I remember when, they said Joe Biden was stepping down and we were trying to guess who was going to fill the running for president. His name kept coming up. If this guy ever freaking runs for president, I think he'll lose worse than any other Democratic candidate.
He's closer to Hillary Clinton than Kamala Harris, honestly.
Yep, it's just really bad. I think, especially when it comes to governors running for president, everybody's going to go and look to your state and how you ran your state, and that they're going to apply that
Right.
to how you're going to run the country.
Yeah, it's pretty bad news, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think everybody's going to look at that and be like, why don't you clean your state up first before you run the country?
Absolutely. RFK for FDA, perhaps?
Yeah, that's what has been thrown around. Donald Trump, he's like, stick to the health issues, but don't touch the oil.
Isn't that funny how he's all concerned about energy? He's like,
Yeah,
yeah, do anything you can, but don't touch energy in this country. We need energy, right? The
yeah.
energy crisis. It's not like the energy crisis of the 70s, mind you, but an energy crisis is an energy crisis nonetheless, right?
Yep. And I think he's just, RFK, he's going to get things lined out with the FDA. He's going to start publishing, what all's in our food a little bit better, what chemicals are bad for us. There's a lot of food here that we
Mhm.
eat that is just, that has chemicals and whatnot in it. That's
Yeah,
banned in other countries.
right. Totally. That's Red 40 is a good one to point to. Many carcinogens that are in our food, microplastics. There have been multiple studies on microplastics and carcinogens. And of course, he's propelled the idea of phytoestrogens, but that's more of a niche talking point than an RFK talking point. I don't
Right.
know. I think I even said a podcast or two ago that RFK would do better in an administrative position than in a policy position on that, because if he can advise the president on how to lead the agency and how to lead the policy around food production and regulation, then he can absolutely be the one to enforce that much better than anyone else could as the head of the FDA.
Yep. And not only did Donald Trump promise him a position, I'm excited to see, JFK, was he killed by the CIA?
I'm not about ready to start saying any of that because that's too out there for
We're
me.
gonna we're gonna find out though. We're gonna find out for sure.
Oh, you're the opinion guy, so I'll let you say it.
Well, Donald Trump did promise him that was something that was going to happen if he endorsed it.
Now, RFK deserves a position. I mean, he deserves a position. He's been through it all. He got absolutely shystered out of a position by the Democrats.
Yeah,
He
the whole
lost.
not running the gosh darn primary, and then them using lawfare to freaking keep him out of the primaries and keep him off ballots in certain areas. But when he goes and endorses Trump, they're like, "You must stay on the ballot."
It was so funny they abandoned him for Kamala in the end. If anything, I would have just swapped him in, but he was still too conservative by Democrat standards these days, I guess.
Yep.
Democrats don't want a bipartisan president. They want a Gavin Newsom. The problem is, I don't think America wants Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, I don't think America's especially after this election, America's nowhere near close to cozying up with Gavin Newsom. Who did Donald Trump announce for border czar? What's his name?
Homan,
Yeah, he's gonna freaking crack down, dude.
all right. Now, as you can see from the Times of San Diego, Trump is naming Tom Homan, who is the former immigration enforcement guy, chairman, head, whatever you want to refer to him as quote unquote border czar. Now, if I recall the interview that he was in, I think the interview followed a 60-minute interview said that separating families during deportation was immoral. And he responded with, "You can deport families together." This guy, I think, has a plan. Zero tolerance is a good way to put it. It's he's the guy that's probably not going to cave under pressure, whereas a lot of the former guys have definitely fallen to pressure to stop doing what they're doing because of bad press. There's just some people out there that care about doing their job regardless of how the press looks at them. And that's a good
I
thing.
think, yep, this guy's gonna, hold true to his values. He's gonna do his job.
Yeah, if you're
So
elected, if you
he's
are
gonna
put in
get
a
the thumbs up
position,
down immediately.
yeah, if you're put in a position to do something regardless of how you think it looks, you should probably do it, especially if that person that put you there was elected to that position.
I think media companies they are no longer as powerful as what they wish they were anymore. I think that they've realized that just people in general no longer go to them for for their news sources. People are going to these podcasts and whatnot, and alternate sources of media.
Well, yeah, no.
So
Traditional media is good for its own thing. Traditional media is good when it comes to getting a full picture. Traditional media is not nearly as good when it comes to looking for answers for something microscopic in the grand scale of things. If you need something to be researched, if you need a topic to be looked into, if you need individuals to be vetted, it's usually good on a individual scale because in the individual scale, people learn to trust individuals more than entities, which is why people no longer trust things like MSNBC, Fox News, the mainstream press, because they feel like they can trust an individual to do something because an individual can be easy to avoid if they become corrupted. But a lot of people steer clear of news organizations because if they become corrupted, it's hard to tell where that's coming from inside the organization, which is why people steer clear of those organizations altogether in modern times.
I just feel like a lot of the media companies have just done it to themselves. The TDS is just they have TDS real bad. I'll just leave it at that.
It's more down to the education system, I believe. Anybody who obtains a degree is miles more likely to has left-leaning views than anywhere else. And so a lot of times if they publish something, that's going to come off in that because they're trained to see the world that way. They think they're trained to root for things that will serve their purpose. And they see
Almost
that
like an
purpose.
indoctrination.
It is indoctrinating, but I think both sides do their fair share of indoctrinating, honestly. But the left-leaning individuals in academia definitely do that better because they've been doing it far longer. So yeah, make of that what you will.
Anyways, just kind of, a little bit of some thoughts.
Speaking of other
Guess.
government positions, Elon Musk getting a position as an advisor to the president. Do you think that's
Yes,
going to
I
be the
would.
case?
Yes, I think that'll be the case. I think he's going to help. Donald Trump was saying something along the lines of starting up a separate, like, investigative group or like kind of like a fourth branch that monitors the government and its spending.
For most part, that's done internally by Congress. They have the Ways and Means Committee that looks into spending habits of lesser parts of the government. The Ways and Means Committee is
Well,
the one that helps form a spending plan year to year. But I think that having a non-government body that looks at it and advises the president on it is a good idea.
yes, I think that's a wonderful idea. I'm excited to see where all of our money's freaking going because let's just face it, Congress does a crappy job of freaking spending money and keeping track of money. They
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 pork
they they, they they flush so much of it down the toilet.
they
It's
pork
freaking
barrel
ridiculous.
everything to the point where money gets lost day to day in the government to the point where it's upsetting.
And I've said this many times before. Our government's got a spending problem. It's not a money problem. We have a spending problem.
At this point,
We just
we pay more on interest than we do. We pay more on interest on our debts than we do the entire Department of Defense. The Department of Defense is approaching, I want to say, $300 billion a year annually.
yeah, and that's
280.
still
It's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrifying. It's pathetic, and it definitely needs to have some kind of intervention. Where that comes from, either Donald Trump forming a advisory committee on spending, or Elon Musk getting a position as a advisor to government efficiency. However that goes about, I suspect that'd probably be the best route. What do you say?
yeah. I think that's all. That sounds music to my ears.
As this is being recorded, this is currently Veterans Day, isn't that right?
Yes, anybody who's ever served, thank you for your service. And you all are making a great big sacrifice that nobody else has ever made. So
It's definitely a great day. All those veterans out there getting their free meals at Applebee's, And, I don't think the Post Exchange has anything that good going on. So Applebee's and Whataburger, and I'm trying to think of the chicken place. Is it Raising Cane's? I bet there's one or two people out there that have wore their dress uniforms to try to get their veterans discounts. They're like, I don't have a combat uniform anymore, but I definitely have some dress greens I can wear.
Anyways, yeah.
Most patriotic thing you can do is eat fried chicken in a service uniform.
Anyways,
I had to go to a party. Jesus.
Well, that's all we have for this week. You snooze, you lose. Till next time.
This was the topics of today, and I hope to see you all next week. Share, like, and save or subscribe to our work to support our efforts. Thank you all for listening.